Hey, what's going on, guys? Monday, February 20th, 2023. Can you believe that we are already almost in March? Believe it or not. Absolutely crazy. All good things must come to an end, as they say, right? Time flies when you're having fun. So we have to be very intentional with what we're doing, our time, right? We just covered the Syria, Turkey stuff going on there this weekend. We have to be intentional with our time and the time that God gives us, our talents and abilities, and what they should or should not be used for. We have to understand that and where we're going. Really quick, the market update today. Uh, the 10-year, boy, it just keeps continually going up, 3.85 basically as we stand right now, and we can see this real shift in the market, in the treasury yield going up. So that means bonds are selling off, and it could be from a lot of things, right? Countries continually selling our bonds out of our bond and going into other assets, going into Bitcoin, going into whatever. Oil could be whatever, just holding dollars. So we are going to continue watching this over the last few weeks. This has been a stark difference in what has been happening, obviously, over the last few months. We saw this spike here. We're kind of testing these levels of 3.9, basically 4. So we're going to see what happens here, because this is kind of the warning flags start going up, the red flags, like we have said for a long time now. So, and speaking of that, what's going on with the DXY? We'll check that out quick. The DXY is almost at 104, and it's at elevated levels, just kind of historically. And again, we'll give it 50-year, just so we can see context for what's going on. We used to do market updates for our old real estate business all the time. I mean, I always give 3 years of data at least, because if I just give you the data right this second, it's great, but what does it mean? What does it mean in context? So here we have the last 50 years, and we can see these massive spikes. 160 in the 80s, and we had 120 around the .com bubble crash there, and we're seeing climbing back towards those highs again. But overall, we can see this downward trend in rates, in the yields. So at some point, that has to kind of swing back, and we have to figure out what we're doing as society, because as we show all the time, the massive debt we are carrying as a country. At the end of the day, what's the problem we have is that we're in this debt spiral, right? And then you've kind of heard this coin term possibly, but we're in a place where the dollar is dead and has to be printed into oblivion. Just mathematically, it has to be, because the dollar's not backed by anything. So you can't pay it all off, or else the whole system implodes, because there's nothing backing it. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. We can go into that more and dive into that more. The problem is this is the Triffin dilemma, everything, where you have the world reserve currency. You've got to go further and further in debt and print your currency more and more and more, and devalue the currency. So you're making savers losers. Everyone is basically getting a lower and lower standard of living in your country, with a 99%, because they don't understand the effects of inflation, how to negate that by buying assets, buying Bitcoin, buying hard currencies, actually buying the hardest money. They store in dollars. They store in a weak currency, which is that may be the best of the bunch. What is it? I forget what Greg Voss always says, but the best glue at the best horse at the glue factory, right? But it doesn't matter if you're comparing. When I was a kid growing up, and I was fortunate to be a very great hockey player growing up, and my coaches would tell me when I was 10, 12, 14, 15, you can't compare yourself to people here. You can't compare yourself to people at practice. You can't compare yourself to people in this league. You have to look when we do global competitions, the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, or we go to United States Select Festivals for the top 200 kids in the country. That's where you compare yourself. That's what we have to do as a currency. The United States dollar has to compare itself to the gold, silver, and Bitcoin. How is it doing compared to those? That's what you must be comparing to, not the other schlubs in the DXY. It's a basket of other worthless currencies. So these are things we have to keep an eye on. This is what has to, like we said many times, this is when the DXY is going up. It's usually because people are selling out of assets, and they're all just jamming into the dollar, and the dollar is strengthening. So when it's opposite, when the dollar is falling, that means people are generally leaving the dollar network, and they're going into other assets. They're going into other networks, in essence. So we're going to continue, again, the trifecta in oil, DXY, the dollar relative strength, and the 10-year treasury. These are the straws that stir the drink. So crude oil, about 77, 78, bounced back up a little bit from the last handful of days. Not financial advice, it's freedom advice. I don't think it's coming in the next 6 months, maybe the next 6 years, maybe the next decade, maybe the next, could be 20 years. I don't know. They could kick the can down the road. I'm not a great guy at timing things, but all I know is the plane is speeding up, and the paint is starting to peel off of the plane. The wings aren't ripped off yet, but we have to prepare. any sane human being would prepare. Only in this world, this time, right now, we as people in culture, Instagram, social media, look at others and say, "Oh, you're preparing, huh? Oh." These clowns think government's going to come save them. Like that's noble in and of itself. Like I'm gonna have the government save me. Nothing bad can happen. I'll get bailed out. That in and of itself is the weakest thing I've ever seen from a human being. Quite honestly, it's one of the weakest things. Not the weakest, but one of the weakest things. And it's such a sad state of affairs that people that are preparing and see the writing on the wall and can forecast, read the tea leaves, are the ones that are looked at as crazies, as domestic terrorists or conspiracy theorists. When all we're doing is saying, "Hey, look at the debt, look at what's going on, look at the unrest around the world, look at all the crazy things happening. This is unsustainable." The whole entire financial system is a Ponzi scheme. Again, we have 1,000 videos you can go look at, looking and seeing how that is the case. And yet we're going to continue doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Just absolute clown world. We can't keep going with this massive debt we have, $31.5 trillion, and go to 5, 10, 15% rates really at all. They have to change course. They have to start printing currency, bringing the rates down, and assets take off again. Bitcoin takes off. Other assets probably hedge and at least kind of hold their value and just preserve your purchasing power, go sideways, like stocks and real estate, stuff like that. Bitcoin will be the one that fastest horse that outruns everything like it has been the last 14 years. And because it's the only finite asset, like your time. So anyway, before we go for too much further down the road, kind of cut it off there. I want to keep this somewhat short. I don't want to go too crazy long. But gold and silver, again, just beaten down over the last week or two and still kind of just hovering there. Not too much of a change there necessarily. We looked at the DXY, what's going on there. And the indexes just, a tick down a little bit on the day. Nothing crazy there. And then Bitcoin, again, about 25,000. So that's been the one seeing the global liquidity really rise and having this 40% move over the last month and a half. So Bitcoin seeking that out. That's only going to decouple more from the NASDAQ and all these risk-on assets. People seeing Bitcoin as the hardest money to ever be discovered by human beings. More people, that will just decouple from everything in the coming years here. And that will literally go to the moon. And again, it's not financial advice, it's freedom advice. This is just how the properties of money work, Gresham's law, and the laws of nature work. This is just indisputable at this point. Someone that's put in their hours of work and studying monetary systems and how things work would only make us trade themselves, finite time for a finite asset, Bitcoin and time is Bitcoin, and see that we are going there with future trends, technology, being digital, everything. That is the future. And unless we're going to sit here and say, hey, an asteroid is going to take out the Earth and kill all of us and take out Bitcoin and blow up all the satellites at the same time, everything, then okay, great. That's literally the only way this doesn't work. And there's not one copy of the time chain anywhere in a human existence ever, so someone can find it and then start it back up again. Literally, it's a virus. It's a benevolent virus.